Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Lynette Lewis. I'm from Gale Cengage, and I have the privilege of introducing our next keynote speaker. Just before I begin the formalities, the Twitter hashtag is #applic18. Please, I encourage you to join the conversation. So now for the formalities. Dr. Michael Stevens is Associate Professor at the School of Information at San Jose State University. He was the 2009 CAVAL Visiting Scholar in Australia. He has consulted for the US Embassies in Germany, Switzerland and Turkey, and for over a decade has presented keynote and plenaries to national and international library and higher education audiences. Since 2010, Dr. Stevens has written the monthly column Office Hours, and I'm sure you've all read it, the Library Journal, exploring issues, ideas, and emerging trends in libraries and LIS education. His research focuses on the use of emerging technologies in libraries, professional development, and learning programs. He's inspired by library structures and virtual spaces that support users' participation, creation, and encouraging the heart, hence the title of his presentation. In 2016, Arla Editions published 5 years of Office Hours columns from the Library Journal as a book entitled The Heart of Librarianship. And today I welcome and I hope you will join me in welcoming Dr. Michael Stevens, who I have actually known for about 10 years, to his keynote address, The Heart of Librarianship, Finding Balance in Challenging Times. Please welcome Dr. Michael.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. How are you doing? It's the last thing of the day. I see some folks bringing in their wheelie bags because it may be right out and on to travels home. I appreciate you all remaining and attending. We got some cool stuff to go through, and yeah, let's dive in and see how we do. I also want to thank everyone that brought me here for this amazing trip. It is week 3 of 4, and I am having a most wonderful time. As you heard, I teach for San Jose State University School of Information in lovely, beautiful, warm California. I happen to live in the state of Michigan because we are a 100% online program. And it is summer there right now. Here's what winter looks like. And this is a typical winter morning walk for me. There it is. Okay. The energy at this conference has been incredible, and thank you for that as well. It is so exciting to me to see everyone going to sessions and the excitement in the exhibition hall. And last night at the dinner, and yes, I am a big introvert, and I left after I finished my main because I was very tired. But yay for you all for, for charging on, absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. I quote Clay Shirky often and say, in libraries and in life, we should embrace as much chaos as we can stand. And I have to be honest with you that the chaos in the United States, if not the world, has just about got to be as much as I can stand. But there are so many wonderful things happening as well. And libraries are changing and evolving with these changes and with changes in information technology and, of course, with challenges. So let's look at some of those very quickly. Of course, there's the issue of money and time. I think those things will always be there, and we work within the budgets we have, and we strive to pull in more if we possibly can. The other thing we deal with is public perception. And when I was with you all 10 years ago, and maybe somebody attended one of the Hyperlink Library talks in 2008. We talked about public perception of libraries and the idea that when people think of libraries, they think of books. And that's research that OCLC did many, many years ago. And I think to a certain degree, it holds true, especially when something like this rolls out on the Forbes website and irks a lot of people, including irking a lot of librarians. And yay for us, we had it taken down. So if you tweeted... If you tweeted your unhappiness with this craziness, forgive me for saying that, good for you, because you helped this go away. And that's exactly what we need to do. Now, some of the other challenges we experience are internal challenges. And those sometimes can be the hardest things that we deal with. You may have encountered this statement before. Well, we've always done it this way. I think we're still sort of pushing against that a little bit, kind of chipping away at that we've always done it this way mentality. And yay for the folks up on the stages in the last 3 days that have been talking about marketing collections and reaching out to populations and doing everything they can to do things a bit differently. It might also be that you have some folks in your institution who have built their own little fortress around their jobs. And all the institutional knowledge is here. If you're one of those people, now's the time to start talking to everybody because you need to share your knowledge. Because eventually, it might be you go on to the next thing. And we don't want to leave your institutions in the lurch. Here's another one. Something might happen. Oh, we can't do this program because something might happen. Let's have a meeting and talk about all the bad things that could potentially happen. Why don't we have a meeting and talk about all the wonderful things that could be the outcome of whatever it might be? New program, new experiential digital creation space. A Storytime that turns Storytime on its head. The good thing is that I think libraries facilitate and create. I did it backwards. I think libraries create and facilitate connections. There it is. I can look at it right here. That's what everybody's been looking at all these days. Nice. It looks so beautiful there. Okay. All right. Wow. All right. So I would say that the heart of libraries is supporting learning and our users' curiosity through every means possible. What does that look like? Learning. Before I take you through that, I want to do a tiny little tangent and take you to Denmark, to the Dock 1 Library, right on the waterfront, voted IFLA's best public library of the last couple of years. I attended a conference there last year that I'll tell you a little bit about in just a bit. But I followed this library for probably 10 years, watching what they were doing as they were planning for this building. And one of the things that their director said is, we built our library for people, not books. Yeah, it's amazing. It is a giant facility. The collection size did not change. It moved into the new building, but there's much more room for people. One of the things they did was base their project, their building, on the 4 spaces of the public library model, developed in Denmark in one of the information schools. Take a look. I know this is a real, intense, small slide. It looks really nice up there. It's a kind of an intense slide, but if you take a look, there's experience, empowerment, involvement, and innovation. Those are the 4 spaces of the public library. And where they intersect, things happen. Between experience and empowerment is learning and learning space. Between experience and innovation is inspiration space. That's what we want. We want folks to learn, and we want folks to be inspired. In the middle of the Dock 1 library, I'll tell you the story real quick. I'm going to sit here for just a second. Okay. I'm at this conference. It's incredible. It's called Next Library. In the middle of this library, they put in an art installation of a giant gong. In the hospitals in Aarhus, if a new baby is born, an iPad is brought in to the parents, and they can press a button on that iPad, and this gong rings. Yeah. I hope I'm not messing up the folks doing the recording by being on the floor. So we're having reception in this space at the conference. Okay, everybody's standing around with their glass of wine, blah, 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 talking, and the gong rang. It was one of the most beautiful things. And more than one librarian shed a tear. I am serious. That's the kind of connection we should have to our community. You don't have to put a gong in your library. But what could you do in your specific instance with your specific community and group of users that would reach them where they live? All right, let's talk a bit about learning. First up, in libraries, we used to do this, learning in the warehouse. You might come in, maybe I'm going to plan my trip to Australia, find a book on Australia, flip through it, put the book down on a table because there are signs everywhere that say, please do not reshelve books, and then toddle off and be gone. Learning in the warehouse. It really has changed. Now, as I said, we support learning in so many different ways. Formal learning that might take place in learning labs, in classrooms, in different spaces across a campus, within the community, in town, in the city, etc. But also that informal type of learning that happens across the desk, or in the stacks, or at the cafe, or in the dining hall, or wherever the library happens to be. It might also be an unexpected type of learning. This is the Books and Butchers program. I'm sorry, I'm a vegetarian. This is kind of icky. Well, it's kind of icky, but it's the Books and Butchers program at Johnson County Library in the state of Kansas. Who knew there are famous butchers in Kansas who, these guys specifically, do sustainable farming, they make everything count, and it's very thoughtful. The librarians brought them in for a program, and they filled the room. They made the New York Times having this program. Demonstrating what you do with half of a pig. So I've used this slide for a while after Sean Casserly at Johnson County sent it to me. And in situations like this, and one time, a lady way in the back said, wait, look at all the men. I can't get men to come to my programs. And someone else, even farther in the back, said, serve beer. And guess what? That works. How many of you are doing like wine, beer, tasting parties at the library or wherever you can do them? Yeah, absolutely. Think about that. File that away as well. A little bit of, yeah. The DIY, lending library at Howard County Library System. Another example of sort of that unexpected type of learning or support for learning because, yes, doing a DIY project is certainly a learning experience. They make things like tools. If you look very closely way in the background, wheelbarrows, ladders, that's absolutely amazing. Then there's this type of learning, which is based in curiosity. Maybe you pause the movie you're watching, or you stop in the book you're reading and grab your device, your second screen, and suddenly you're looking up something in whatever websites, Wikipedia, library databases, whatever it might be, and 20 minutes have gone by and you've learned something new. I think that happens a lot. We know that happens with our users, and we know that they are probably picking up their devices and going to their favorite search engine and searching that way. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about our foundations. Here's what we do well, what we have always done, and what I believe we always will do, and that is service in all the different forms of the word. And I believe this is New Zealand, a very from one of the New Zealand libraries. I like that photo a lot. Access, providing access for folks in all the different ways that we might do that, and of course, intellectual freedom. And that's the freedom to read anything, to view just about anything that we want within the parameters of the library. The other thing that we do well is we encourage people to be literate. And right now we talk a lot about digital literacy. I think we need to broaden that out because guess what? Digital literacy, to me, there it is life literacies. You cannot get along in the world. You can. But you would be better served, no matter where you are, and no matter where you are in country here, you would be better served to have some experience with technology. So I think we should aim for this, life literacies. And it should go from the earliest story time all the way through our lives, all the way to the programs for the more senior members of our communities. So we have some great possibilities. And let me tell you about some of them. So this stuff is really exciting to me. An evolution of services. Here's Tess at the Westport County Library in the United States. She came in to do her research project. Guess what? Her research project was on the Titanic. Yay, it's one of my favorite things when I was a little boy, but I was so interested in ships and the story of the Titanic. As part of her research, Tess got to 3D print a Titanic to take home and use as part of her presentation of her paper that she wrote. How wonderful is that? It's not people gathered around the 3D printer saying, ooh, cool technology, ooh. No, they're doing something with it that actually extends her learning, and that's something we should aim for as well. Gwinnett County Library in the state of Georgia has adopted the Open Plus system. Have you heard about this? Yeah, are people talking about it in Australia? Forgive me for not knowing. That's where patrons of the public library can swipe their card and get in between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. when nobody else is in the building. Did that just freak you out? It's very interesting. They have made it work, and they did this to extend services to their public. They don't have the money to staff those 2 extra hours in the morning, and potentially they want to go to 9 or 10 o'clock at night. They can't afford that, but they can afford this system. Somebody signs up, they use their library card, they swipe in, and they can use the library in the morning. And I was there, I did a tour, I talked with the user experience librarian. The folks that come in early in the morning are there to read the paper. They're there maybe with a couple of other people to chat and browse. A lot of homeschoolers come in, and a lot of single people that just want quiet time to browse the shelves. They've made it work. You can actually read about it in, I believe, the New Public Libraries magazine. At the same time that they did this, talk about change, still at Gwinnett County, they closed for a couple of weeks 2 years ago and took out all of the service desks in the libraries. They all went away. They went to self-checkout, and they have librarians, as you can see this gentleman, with a roving kiosk, looks kind of like this, zipping around the library and landing where he can help someone, for example, check out books or place holds or do whatever. They have made this work as well, and it's fascinating to think about where this will go. Here's Carnegie Mellon. They did that thing that a lot of university libraries are doing, is they're moving more of the collection off-site to make room for what? For spaces for students to bring in technology or work on their own technology, a space for collaboration, and whatever innovative things might pop up, a flexible learning space for everyone. Next area is discovery. And that's how we find things and how we access information. And I'll tell you a little, we're doing really well on time. I'll tell you a little tiny story. I was reminded that 10 years ago when I was here, I had an iPhone and Australia didn't have them yet. And my memory, I apologize, it's like, phew. Someone reminded me that in my talk, the hyperlinked library back then, I would say, look. And now, look, like, we're all, yeah. Okay. So where I live in Michigan, in the summertime, we have more neighbors because it's a tourist spot. And don't tell anybody, we share our Wi-Fi with our neighbors. This has been a few years. I look out the window, and there's Ian. He's maybe 6 or 8. Now he's 13. And he's like this. I looked out the window. I said, Ian, what are you doing? He said, I'm downloading apps. He's 8. And now he's 13. Think of what the world will look like for him at 18. And at 28. What will this be? Will it be a chip that we can just embed in our heads and we can, I don't know. But it's fascinating to think about. Discovery can come in the form of circulating some interesting stuff, and this is University of Colorado. The skulls are checked out. I honestly don't know why they are checked out. It could be anatomy class, it could be Shakespeare class, maybe? Did you see this? Did you see this come by in the social media? Oh my goodness, what's happened to the world? They're at the museum and they're not looking at the art. Do you know what they're really doing? Yeah, they're using the museum's app to learn the background of the beautiful pieces. And I believe this was in the Netherlands. I'll make these slides available as soon as I get connected afterward. There's links and everything so you can follow up, and it's a nice looking photo as well. New York Public Library has really worked in the digital space to get some interesting collections up here. You can go to a map, you can tap, and this is just one example of so many wonderful examples that do this and do it well. You can tap and see historical photos. So I really like that space as well for access. It gets very interesting when we talk about engagement. For example, University of Iowa is asking users to transcribe old recipe books and journals and old documents to transcribe, and then somebody, it's a 2-tier process. Somebody transcribes a page, and then somebody proofreads it, and then they check it, they sign off, and it becomes part of the digital collection. Really nice way to engage users. This is from the library, St. Joseph County Public Library, where I worked for 15 years before I got into teaching. This is called the Micro Bend. Have you seen this? It's really interesting. This is like a public art installation where you involve the users. They can come in, they take their photo, super easy to do. They take their photo with a green screen behind them. You can see the photo right up there, or the green screen right up there. And then they print out little tiny stand-up figures and they populate like this dollhouse space, this art installation, little teeny weeny ones called the Micro Bend. Here's a nice patron with her best library ever tote bag. That's bold of St. Joe County to say their best library ever, but I'll roll with that. And that's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. How wonderful is that he became part of the installation? Here's the Instagram wall at North Carolina State University. And, a local example from my colleague Warren right out there at Townsville. Warren, is this right? The kids were drawing on the furniture. So the library folks said, let's make it a program, and let's let the kids draw on the furniture, and it became part of the library space for them. Something might happen. Well, yeah, something cool might happen. Absolutely. Warren, thank you for that, too. Nice. All right. The other thing I want to talk about a bit is telling stories. I'm also giving you like a slideshow of my travels around Australia. So wonderful to visit libraries. Telling stories is one of the most important things we can do. A colleague of mine from the Netherlands many years ago said, what libraries do is keep stories, share stories, and make stories. And that make story thing is very, very interesting. And we've seen a resurgence in different formats and different ways of storytelling recently, in the last couple of years. Anybody recognize this? Interesting. This is John B. McLemore's Maze from the podcast S-Town, which had 17 million downloads in its first week of being a podcast. And it made me realize, it was a very emotional ride, 7 hours listening to this. It made me realize that we were experiencing the golden resurgence of podcasts, things like Serial, S-Town, and so many others that have kind of become this thing. Like podcasters are doing tours and they're coming around. And I know Brian Reed, who helped create S-Town, actually came to Sydney Opera House and spoke. A library, Stirling Municipal Library, contacted me because I did a column about S-Town and said, here's what we're doing. We're curating podcasts on iPads and circulating them. So, for example, it's kind of serious stuff here, I apologize. Here's the Kid Criminals iPad, and they can read all about kid criminals and read, listen, view, etc. on an iPad that circulates. So you might have the S-Town and related iPad or the whatever the hot topic might be. Another form of engagement, and I really appreciate this, is Library Up Late, grown-up story time. I wrote about this a few pieces ago in Library Journal. Anybody from Tea Tree Gully here? Rock on! Look how cool that is. Okay, this was mulled wine, right? And adult story time. Well done. Cheers. This is brilliant. This is Mill Valley Library. They are collecting stories from their users. You can record a story and submit it to be shared on the Naked Truth website. Connect, create, and contribute. The beautiful thing about this, and I'd like to see more of this, is because if we share our stories, some of the voices that aren't heard in the mainstream media rise to the top. Stories about what it's like to grow up gay, what it's like to grow up disadvantaged, whatever it might be, those are the stories that we want to bring to the top. And I really believe that the dialogue that we can have around people's stories can benefit everyone who participates. So, what does the future look like? We're moving into a rapidly evolving, we're not moving into it, it's always been this way, but we are in the middle of a rapidly evolving information landscape. There's a lot going on. For example, I read a wonderful study about emoji and emoji use by a linguist who studied how people use emojis. I wrote a column about it. I titled the column this, because I wanted to see how it would be indexed by the databases. The downside was for Library Journal to put it online, it had to have a text title, so we called it Library Emoji. What it is, information desk person, and there's a male and female version of this. I chose the female. She's like this. One of her definitions is information. Books, the world, creativity, computers is a good idea. We can tell stories with emoji. The study I read, the linguist found that within families or with groups of close friends, that we develop a language of emoji that means something to us that might have totally different meanings to other groups or other people. I absolutely know that as a fact, because I can send a string of emojis to my close friends and they know exactly what it means. The most used emoji to say that I'm mad at my phone, the study said, is the little skull. Didn't know. What's the next step for this? Let's just play this out. Where will we be down the road? This is a story. What do you think this is? Little pop culture reference here today. Yes, Game of Thrones. Yeah. And to put a real granular point on it, I realized when I did this, it's sort of like the first 6 seasons. Oh, yeah. You know, some things happened, right? Okay, one more. Please indulge me. This is pretty easy. See what you think. Yes, Twin Peaks. And I was told that, yay, applause for Twin Peaks. Yay, nice. I was told that season 3 has not arrived in Australia yet. Is that true? Watch for it. It was amazing. Is it out of the question to think that what if this plays on? What might happen to the way we communicate? Could the graduate research paper in 100 years look more like this than 8 pages of typewritten words? That's kind of scary to think about, but we don't know. Look what the Egyptians did with hieroglyphics. Here it is in the real world, though. This is Grand Valley State University in Michigan. They have lots of screens around, and here is, how was your library experience today? And you can tap and rate your experience using a very familiar emoji. And they do just give you a standard set. And here's, when you vote, here's what they give you, the average library experience. There's a beautiful library behind the screen. So they're gathering that data. So data is coming in as emojis. Imagine if they just let it be whatever, you could have strings of emoji that then you'd have to, that would be very, very interesting. Okay, I put this in, hello. There we go. I put this in, this was 2 weeks ago at the National Gallery of Art in the contemporary section. Virtual reality exhibit, if you're in Canberra, don't miss this. I put on the goggles, I'm standing on this thing. The round design there was actually in the virtual reality, so it looked the same. And then suddenly the floor dropped away. And it was all this stuff swirling around me. It's probably the best implementation of virtual reality. I know there was a discussion earlier about virtual and augmented reality. Of virtual reality I've ever seen. And I have like a little bit of a height thing, like vertigo, like, oh, I'm on the edge type thing. And it felt exactly like that. It's amazing what it does to your brain. So take this, okay, and think, what does that look like in 10 years? In our homes, we might have our Netflix and our whatever streams in. We have our devices. Who knows what consumer electronics will do with this in 10, 25 years? That might, again, really change the information landscape, where I can plug in before my trip to Australia and walk around the streets of whatever city I might be visiting to maybe soak it up, get used to it, think about it, decide what I want to see in person, or any other number of things that we might do with this type of technology. Just for your information, file that away, keep it on the long-term radar. And then there's this. And I know it's coming slowly. How many folks have a virtual assistant in their homes, like Google Home or Echo? Okay. Amazon in the United States, they never really say exact numbers, but right after our Black Friday, which happens the day after Thanksgiving in the States, everybody shops and we go online and we shop. Amazon said they sold millions and millions of these. So in the US, this is a thing. And I have 4 of these in my home now. And I walk through the house and I talk to her. Alexa, turn on the living room lights. Alexa, turn on the office lights. Alexa, what's the weather? And she does those things and she tells me. And it is absolutely fascinating to think about. And I wrote a column about this because I think this is something we should think about. And again, there was a study. I'm always inspired by all these great studies. Folks think of their virtual assistant as a friend. Okay? Bear with me. Many folks, me included, say thank you when the lights come on. She doesn't hear me because I didn't say her name. but I still say it. That's the kind of beautiful human thing. Column went up and a few people got irked. We don't need to worry about this. This is consumer electronics. Guess what? It's not. It's information behavior and it's information communication technology, and we do need to be aware of it. There are libraries, not many, in the United States that are sending these out the door for people to try out, to have that experience, to see how it works. There are also libraries, and this is something to do, when this becomes a big deal here, for public library folks in the room, for academic library folks in the room, roll it into your technology instruction. Don't ignore it, and I don't think you will. Roll it in and tell people, yeah, this is a really helpful thing, but also be aware of the implications for privacy and all the weird stuff that we haven't figured out yet. And we could say this about so many technologies that have come out over the years. Alexa, it didn't happen to me, but it made the news that she would randomly laugh. Like, ha, 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 ha. Why is she laughing? Are they listening to me? Is all this spooling onto a server at Amazon? I don't know. But if one of the things we do is we help people access information, is we certainly should help them understand what this means in their lives if they choose. As information professionals, we have to choose. Oops. And if you look at the Alexa app and look for skills, they're called, they're little add-ons you can add to your Echo. I discovered the Library of Congress has a presence, as well as LA Public Library so far. So 10 years ago, it was like blogs, be on Facebook, do all this stuff. And now, just be aware that this is a space that we might be in. And the flash briefing is a thing that Alexa will do. She will read off the news, or NPR, like a 3-minute NPR thing will play in the morning if I say, Alexa, what's a flash briefing? So it's really interesting to see a library presence. So technology is no longer an add-on. I'm back to this. This is literacy, just like reading. Understanding technology, and again, to broaden it out, it's life literacies. Even if your users, your communities you serve, are not anywhere near adding a virtual assistant to their homes, it's still good to be aware for when the time comes, and maybe to give them access and to give them a little of experience. Because no matter where you are, you can benefit from the experience of exposure to some of these technologies. So how do we do this? How do we find balance? All these things that I've been talking about, and it really is overwhelming. It really starts with us. This is the group of librarians at West Virginia University in 1908. What a world they probably worked in. Serving the students, serving the faculty, way back then. Guess what? If you are signed up to be a librarian, you have entered the ultimate service profession. That's what I say it is. And there's a lot of things that you may do that you were never taught in library school. And there's a lot of things that you have to consider because you are serving everyone. And we'll talk about that in just a bit. This is a formula that I wrote a column about to get ready for a workshop in Denmark. Talked a little bit about it in our session this morning on professional learning experiences. This is an exercise you can do in your libraries. This is a formula. You can actually unpack this with your staff. Just very quickly, talk about essential skills needed for library work. What do we need right now? What are the skills that might really work well for the type of work we're doing? We heard this morning there is an influx of people coming into Australian public libraries because government says go get the forms at the library. So that's a thing. Add to that mindset, and that's what happens up here. I made that squared because that, to me, is the most important thing. Multiply that by support from the institution, and you have success. What really makes this work? Librarian superpowers. Let me take you through them. Number one, curiosity. If you hear about an Amazon Echo or the next thing that comes after that, the goggles or the whatever it might be curious about it. That should be part of what you do. Hopefully you're already curious. Maybe you've been in your job a long time. You're super great at your job. But maybe you're like, wait, there's some new stuff happening. Maybe I should look into that. That's where this comes into play. Administrators, managers, encourage this with your folks. Say, yeah, let me know what you're curious about. We'll work it out. Spend a little time. This will serve us well. You cannot discount such an important thing like an Echo or whatever comes after it, or the iPhone a few years ago, etc. Look at what that has done. Creativity. Absolutely. Being creative, promoting creativity, this is stuff that's hard to teach in library school. Encouraging different ways of doing things, outside of the box thinking, all those things come into play when we talk about creativity. I got to watch the time. Confidence as well. I learned something at Next Library. I'll show you this. And anybody can do this. This was a librarian from Brazil. She said, no matter who you are, if you are feeling daunted by a task you have to do the Wonder Woman pose. Men can do it too. Don't be shy. So at the reception after this, join me and we'll, okay? Cool. Have confidence. There's a link down here for a wonderful conversation I had with, I'm going to say her last name wrong, I'm so sorry, Sally Perwangi? Thank you. I apologize for that. In New Zealand, thank you. In New Zealand, in the most recent bit I have in Library Journal, we talked about confidence. Part 2 of that should be out very soon. This is so important. And what Sally says is don't be afraid to do that thing you think you need to do. And for her, it was making videos. And her first video was kind of rough and not polished. That's how we learn. Absolutely. That leads to confidence. And then there's this. Empathy. This is probably the number one thing I think we need right now. Understanding that across the desk or standing across from you in the library is someone that may have had a horrible day or is dealing with something or has so many things going on. And this little interaction you have can be very valuable. With empathy comes understanding about the world and how it works. So, how do we do this? And again, I will watch the time. I would urge you to be reflective practitioners. What does that look like? It's threefold. It means taking responsibility for your actions. One of my walking partners in Michigan, she has a t-shirt that says, "Own it." That's what this is. I'm going to own my actions as a professional. Open-mindedness, being open to things changing, being open to new technologies, being open to feeling curious about what's happening in the information landscape. And wholeheartedness means we are all in. This is on the door at one of the work groups at Salt Lake City Public Library. I love this. We work together to make lives better. And we've heard that. I've heard that a few times at conference. I love this. This is the rest of it. We are inclusive, open, curious, playful, and kind. It's brilliant. Put that on your door. We are always learning. I'm doing a research project right now with Helen Partridge and Kate Davis at the University of Southern Queensland. And we are looking at professional learning experiences. We did a survey that we talked about this morning. I am running interviews. And if you'd like information about those interviews, and if you are interested in playing a role, this is for public library folk. We're focusing on public library folk right now. Please talk to me at the reception. But I've talked to a handful of librarians so far via Zoom, and it's been so interesting to hear how they learn. And it was very striking. One of them said, "I want to pick people's brains until there's nothing left." Her way of learning is to talk to people and pick their brains. I think that's beautiful. And I hope that is something that has happened for all of you here in the last 3 days, is you've got to talk to people and ask them questions and figure out how you might pull in their knowledge to make your services better. So, we are learners, we make connections, we open doors, we are reflective practitioners. So, the heart of librarianship, what does that look like? We listen. We listen to student voices if you went to that session today, and it's so important to hear what students and what our users have to say about our libraries. If you're doing anything in public libraries, academic libraries, all kinds, talk to the users. We teach. This is one of our roles now. No matter what you do in libraries, you are doing some type of instruction function. We build community. Here's the knitting group at Gwinnett County Public Libraries. They are a community that the library serves, and they come in and they learn and they talk. And we welcome everyone in. It pains me that in the United States we have to put up a sign like the one on the left-hand side at Cornell University, that spells out something that libraries have always done, is welcome everyone in, no matter who you are, protecting their privacy and open to all. This is a library. We have always done this, but at this moment in time, this has to go up on the door of the library. Libraries are indeed for everyone. I think these are very powerful signs. You can follow up with the URL there and find many different formats of that. We do this with humanity and heart. 10 years ago, I trotted out a slideshow of horrible library signage. The good thing is this is long gone. Oh my goodness, why? How? How does this happen? This is a long time ago. How do we do this? It's a wonderful term from Denmark. I'm going to mispronounce it, forgive me. Hygge. It means a cozy, inclusive feeling during the long winters of feeling part of a community. And it's actually kind of a design strategy that libraries have used to make welcoming spaces. Welcome them in with kindness as well. Don't get angry and put a sign on the door. Pause for pause. At University of Colorado, Colorado Springs Library, dogs in the library, what more could you ever ask for? With soup. How wonderful for the libraries, and if you're looking at expanding a new building, whatever, partnerships, a community kitchen where people come together and they make a meal and then they eat. Soup, something good like this. This was at Next Library. They actually did a program on cooking together to see what it was like. And with focus. 10 years ago, it was social media, technology, social media. And I really believe, and especially like in light of Hygge and sort of this coming back together in a quiet, sort of comforting, warm space, is we have come back around from all this crazy technology to maybe more balance, where now the library should also be a reflective and meditative space. Oh my goodness, the time is slipping away. We did at Next Library this meditation exercise where we found a passage in a book that really spoke to us. Mine was wrapped in that blanket, and we meditated on it. It was absolutely brilliant. And with experience. And that might be something like the dark disco at Madison Public Library, where people can come in and listen to ambient music in the dark and kind of relax and calm down. But really what we want to do is create a space for all. So, going forward, and very quickly, and I appreciate your attention this late in the day. I so appreciate it. Going forward, I really believe we are hurtling toward being a global classroom where we will be connected, and we can connect across distance and time and learn from each other. And we can have programs that might originate here that are beamed to other parts of the world. And we can have so many different ways to learn and discover and make connections with each other. And I really believe we will be community learning connectors that will support everyone, our users, everyone, on whatever platform we have, be it in the physical building or virtually. So, we must never forget that the human heart is at the center of the technological maze. And this is the last little bit we will do. Yes. Are they here? Are you here? I want to see the human face of the library. This is the human face of the library. Huge Friends fan, too, so that's... Here's our friends at Johnson County Public. Staff directory, if you mouse over Sean's picture, it changes. Books rule. Brilliant. Here's Adam, academic library example. I believe he's in Colorado. This is the human face of the library. It's not, out everywhere on the technology. It's there, handed out. Here he is. It's his face. He is servicing the Japanese, Korean studies, etc. Absolutely amazing. The next step is highlighting our users. And this is Doc 1. This is People at Doc 1 series. I think that's a beautiful photo. And I thought they were cutting me off. Just a minute more, I apologize. She has a little statement there about, wow, the library has really changed, but I love it. I want to see the human face of the library, and that's you all. I want to see the human face of the library, and that's everyone you serve. All right, very quickly. I so appreciate how the conference theme has been unpacked. I did a little video out in the Michigan woods long before we gathered here. Absolutely amazing. Remember these things. But I will also add a little bit, if you don't mind. Here's what I'd like you to do as you go home. Reflect on what has happened. Please take a breath. And in like 2 minutes, I'm going to take a great big breath. And just think for a minute and center yourself. Do those things to take care of yourself as well. And please, love what you do and send that out into the world as well. Remember the ultimate service profession. And more than once in the rooms at this conference in the last 3 days, I have heard people say, I want them to experience joy. I want to experience joy. If you ask me, that's what the library should be about. The joy of learning, the joy of experience, the joy of access, whatever it might be. And the bell is ringing. Okay. 3 things, 3, 2, 1. Report back to where you came from. 3 sessions that amazed you, 2 concepts you will focus on, and 1 idea you can apply immediately. I said something 10 years ago. I am still saying it. Libraries should encourage the heart. And that means that we should lead from the heart. As you make decisions for your users and for your staff, lead from the heart. We should learn from the heart. Bring yourself to your learning. Be vocal, talk, interact, share. If it scares you, say it does, because guess what? I'm scared too. And finally, play from the heart. Try things out, experiment, do all the wonderful things you learned about here, think about them, reflect, and keep going. I so appreciate your time. I appreciate getting to run over by a couple of minutes. I will be at the reception if anyone wants to talk. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Whew. Thank you. And we made it. I'm so sorry.
We have run out of time, but I would like to just reflect, as a librarian myself, it's all about empowering libraries, empowering learning, lifelong learning. I would like to present Michael with a small gift, and I'd like you to join me once again in thanking Michael for an inspiring last session.
Thank you so much. Nice.